Alrighty. It is the Awake Space Astrology Podcast. I'm Laurie Rivers, your host, here to help you with some inspiration to get those aspirations out into the world. This podcast is being recorded live in Patreon. And to answer Maria's lovely question, hello, Lori, how are you? Well, it's 2:37 a.m. Mountain Time. I spent all day being meticulous in my recording only to find out I had technical problems. No matter what I did to try to fix that audio, it wasn't getting fixed. So we're doing it all over again, and I get to do it with you. How exciting. I didn't go to the studio to record it, thank God, because I would have been really frustrated because Sir Malcolm isn't feeling very well. He is 13 years old and his hips are hurting, and he's been wanting to be very attached to the mama. So we'll get him into the vet and get him some pain meds because at his age, I wouldn't put him into surgery. So, but there we go. So, good morning, good morning, good morning. Happy Monday, everybody. And we are recording live. So, I had plans for this podcast. And you know what they say? The best laid plans go to waste. But we will definitely talk about exactly what I was going to talk about on the podcast. And one of those things is I had a wonderful conversation with Maverick Joyce, who has been a member of this community for years now, an astrology student of mine. Hey, sorry, I'm old. They are an amazing holistic therapist and coach, and they're starting a coaching program. And I invited them to talk about the the danger of being overly attached to the pathology of a label and how you can turn your neurodivergence into a superpower with time and care. And she's got a 6-month program coming. That interview will be up. It doesn't start until December, the program. And so we'll get it up and get it in the position it deserves. Love Maverick to pieces. And it's been a joy to watch them in their journey and their understandings and unfoldings and how they synthesize all of the beautiful teachings they've been studying. And they inspired me. And I was thinking about the language I use when I talk about training your Mercury and how that could be discouraging to people with an ADHD diagnosis or an autism or a spectrum diagnosis or any kind of learning challenge. And I meditated after our conversation and I thought, how can I find better language to talk about how to adapt your thinking? And the word that came to me instead of training or discipline, which neither one of those are negative words to me, they excite me because that's how my little neurodivergent brain works. It's like, ooh, new stuff. Um, and you guys are witnessing my discipline as I sit here re-recording the podcast. And the word that came to me was tuning. So I want to ask the audience, what do you think of the term tuning your Mercury? What do you think of that instead of training? I think it's a smoother term. It feels smoother. I have synesthesia, so words feel and have texture. Yeah, you love yes, as an ex-violinist. Yeah, and that's what I was thinking of, tuning an instrument or finding your pitch. Yeah. And so because our natal Mercury is how we process input and not just words and thoughts, but also textures. It's how we perceive, and it's how we output our understanding of perception, right? Yeah, you can tune the radio. And thoughts are frequencies of energy. We have thought waves, we have thought patterns, right? And there's energetic frequencies. The sign your Mercury is in and the house your Mercury is in describes how you best receive and transmit information, blocks of thought, because thoughts are energy. And by learning to tune to the frequency that is the preferred one for yourself, okay, is a life practice, right? And we all have thoughts and habits that don't serve us. And those could be through social cultural programming. In the theosophical literature, they used to call it inherited thought patterns. And that's just cultural and social, and it could be family patterns. And we love to blame mom and dad or grandma and grandpa, and maybe they do deserve some blame, but it goes so far back. It's so far back. It's hard to find the beginning of it when we think about it. And so learning to r- tune into thoughts that, and I'm not talking about bypassing, but just thoughts that serve us better is what I'm going to be talking about today. And the reason for that is because we have Mercury conjunct Mars. Still, as I'm recording this with you, it was all day yesterday, and I was thinking it's in Scorpio. Scorpio is a great time to transform and and with Mercury conjunct Mars, that's like transformative action. The thoughts following the action, and the action following the thoughts, and it can be really impulsive on one level, but on another, it can be a great epiphany that's a transforming epiphany. And that's what I'm hoping I leave you with. So, as I always say in the introduction, get your tea, get your coffee, get your matcha, get your Red Bull, get your H2O, because it is the Awake Space Astrology Podcast. And we are going to be on this ride together. So, whether I'm helping you get the laundry done, or we're on a hot girl or a hot guy walk, or we're settling down for a nice rest, or we're going to school, or whatever we're doing. If we're in traffic, you get a beautiful bubble to help you through your commute, and you'll always get perfect parking because that's my special mojo. Thanks to everybody for their well wishes for my buddy Malcolm. A lot of times people think he's my boyfriend, but he's actually my dog. And we've been together now for, oh my gosh, what, 12 years? He's 13. He might be even older, but that's the best guess. And he's just been, he cried out in pain a little bit ago, like, a couple days ago. He doesn't whine or cry. And so again, I'll get him into the vet and we'll get him some pain medication or something, because he was a jumping fool when he was a young dog, and he hasn't been jumping a lot over the last 4 years, but he didn't complain much either. So he's a very stoic terrier, and he's been not feeling his best. So thanks for the Reiki, thanks for the love, and he spent the day with me today because he didn't want me to go. And I do accommodate my dog, and it didn't ruin my day. I'm going to tell you that, because I am blessed to have this guy with me for the many years that I have, and I'm going to accommodate the crap out of him. He is a Taurus. He is, and being uncomfortable isn't good. So, but he's eating, he's drinking, he's doing all the biological functions, so he's doing good. Just getting old, and I'm not there yet myself, but my mother, she was like, "Yeah, I know what that feels like." So we're going to just treat him up and make him feel better. So thank you for your patience. And I think it's kind of fun to record the podcast together as a treat. Um, the audio drivers in my computer were the problem, even though I bought, a new mic for the home office, a new sound interface, and I was still having so much noise, and no amount of editing was fixing it. So, yeah. So, grr. But anyway, so I always say consciousness expresses in a spectrum. And I've been trying to think of practical ways of positing this to people and helping you really understand you're never ever stuck. You can tune your tuner to frequencies that are more minimal. I Last week I talked about the tug of war. This week I want to talk about the transformations. And transformations are done in small incremental steps. We don't ever want to make a giant leap because, again, go back to last week's episode and we were talking about bouncing around in our consciousness. But learning to question ourselves and use discernment towards ourselves. If you have thought patterns that are less than helpful for yourself. Like, I'm all alone. I Nobody gets me. I'm weird. I'm a freak. I'm too much. I'm not good enough. I'm the only one. I'm afraid of rejection. In fact, that's something Maverick and I talked about was rejection sensitivity and how to kind of work through that. A really, really powerful interview. So I can't wait to get it up for you guys. And those repetitive thoughts we have are habits. Okay. Doesn't mean they aren't true. They can be true in a certain reality, but that doesn't mean it's the only reality we can experience. And so when we have these repetitive thought patterns, we can ask ourselves a few questions. And this is something you learn to practice in the mystery school curriculum. You can ask yourself those same coaching questions we do in the hot seat. Where does this feel in my body? How is this serving me? Not in a judgmental or condescending way. We don't want to beat ourselves up. That defeats the purpose of investigation. But in a curiosity way, like, how is this serving me? How is this helping me? What is this doing for me? Is this to my benefit? Is thinking this thought really doing me any favors? How else could I look at this? Just like if you have a hard time learning something, it doesn't mean you can't ever learn it. It's just you don't know everything right now. And so when we when we learn to self-examine our thoughts and be like, wow, I think that thought a lot. I wonder how I could change just a little bit of that. Like, ah, man, I'm never going to get it. This is too hard. Maybe, what can I do differently? Right? Yeah, exactly. Danny says the thought forms can be strong. They can, especially if they're well practiced. And I remember your tip of adding yet. So, like, I am never going to get it. Well, I might get it. I just haven't gotten it yet. And notice how you just like you're weakening that very strong thought form, right? And Katie says that she used those coaching questions all the time in the mystery school for the win. Yeah, it's a great self actualizing process. The new moon in Libra is coming up on the 21st. And that's one of the things that got me thinking about this as well. We've got Mercury conjunct Mars in Scorpio. This is a great time to take action on transforming our thinking. Don't think you're going to get it all at once. You're not. I still work on myself. I've been doing this stuff for decades, like decades. And I'll still find less than useful thoughts popping up that I have to be like, hey, what's going on with that? Yeah, but how can I think about this differently? How long do I want to feel this way? That's one of my favorite coaching questions with clients is if they're like, I'm really pissed. And you're like, you're really pissed. Well, you sound really pissed. Yeah. Well, how long do you want to be there? And that's usually shocking to somebody because everybody's trying to get you not to be angry or not to be frustrated or not. And does it give somebody permission to say, hey, well, yeah, I kind of want to be mad for the next hour. Okay. You want to set a timer for that? And then how do you want to feel after that? What do you want to do with it? Because it's okay to feel any feeling, whether it's fear, grief, pain, right? You feel all the feelings. It's languishing in them. And I used to say luxuriating in them because as a Cancer Sun, Cancer Mercury, we can mope pretty well. And so sometimes it does feel good to wallow a little bit in the muck and have a pity party and eat some emergency carbs and luxuriate in it. It's human. But do we want to live there all the time? No. It leads to bad personal hygiene. And that's a joke. But the Libra new moon is at 28 degrees 21 minutes of Libra. It's at the very end of the sign. It's a very matured new moon. And it's in the third decan. Notice how carefully I pronounce that because this will be downloaded and hopefully captions will be put in. But anyway, it'll be in the third decan, which is governed by Gemini, which is governed by Mercury. And so to set the intentions, and we'll do the intention setting guide later before the new moon, we want to have really clear thoughts. And we'll move into the new moon talk in a little bit, but we want to have really clear understanding of our intentions for this. Not that they won't work if we don't, but we want to come to them with curiosity because Mercury and Mercury ruling Gemini is curious. It's very curious. What does this button do? I wonder how this could work. I wonder what else I could do. I wonder how can I approach this in a different way. So when my software and my sound wasn't working. At first, my stubbornness came in and I was like, I'm not going to re-record. Spent all day recording. Like hell am I going to record again? Those were my thoughts. Well, guess what I'm doing at 2:56 a.m. Mountain Time on Monday, the 20th of October. I'm re-recording in my Patreon because I don't trust anything right now. And I guess AWS is down. I said there'd be internet disturbances. So we're doing it on my phone and I'm doing it in Patreon because I sat there after updating all the drivers. I've already bought new equipment. I haven't been happy with the sound. I knew it was not the microphones. And I was like, what else can I do? What resources do I have? And that's how I walked out very quickly from the frustration to taking action. was, what do I have that I can use? Well, I've got Patreon, and I don't think any patron is going to complain about being available while I record this. So, gets to be a treat, right? So, that's some of the things we can do is come with curiosity. What else do I have? What resources do I have? What can I do differently? These are all good questions to ask ourselves with curiosity as we move towards the new moon on the 21st, and Mercury will still be in orb to Mars. And we'll do, actually, I'll just go through the new moon special podcast in this live recording and I'll just edit it to be a separate file. How's that? We'll just get it all done now. Sometimes you have to punt and sometimes you have to laugh through it. Like, yeah, see, there you go. I have no complaints in the chat here. And it's actually kind of fun for me to have an audience anyway. That's sometimes why it takes me longer to record because I tune in kind of to the audience. Like I try to tune in, like what do people really need? What would be soothing for them? What would people enjoy? How can I help them get through the week differently? And so yeah, I'm riding on the cosmic waves, I can tell you that much. It's at this point, I had to tune up pretty high. Um, no substances, just my thoughts. Um, and I'm glad I've got a comment here from Laura saying couldn't sleep and this is soothing. So I'm glad to hopefully put you to sleep. I've got another extra that I'll put in as well. I came up with a meditation that will help people tune their Mercuries, tune your mind. When we look at esoteric literature, metaphysical literature, the energy work side of things, learning how to tune your mind is essential because too often there is this compulsion to move with frequencies that don't serve us. That's how we can be manipulated. That's how we get told we're deficient, we're not enough. Look at every single commercial telling you you're not thin enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not handsome enough, you're not ripped enough, you've got too many wrinkles, you've got too much gray hair. Look at the young people getting Botox. And they don't have any skin problems or facial problems. I see, 20-year-olds doing it. And unless you've got a migraine or a reason, like TMJ, you are beautiful. You learn to see your beauty, but they don't make any money off that. In spiritual, quote unquote, spiritual circles, so often there is misinformation taught because somebody's on an ego trip and they want followers. I am reluctant in this position, very reluctant. I was actually really happy living a fairly monastic life, meaning give me my books and my studies and my practices. I love to teach, but I don't want followers. I want people who want to grow and learn and expand. And if I can share something I've learned, great. And then go off and prosper and gather and spread it yourself. And so when we learn to manage our consciousness, that's another word for tuning our Mercury, it's understanding how to notice where we're at and how to switch it up into a space that serves us better. Sometimes being in a defensive consciousness is worthy and necessary because sometimes we do have to defend ourselves. And sometimes in defending ourselves, we show other people self advocacy. Other times, it's good to be in you know, a transactional mindset, which is our social conditioning. Because if you're going to the grocery store and you're just walking through and you're saying superficial hellos and nodding to neighbors, that's a social contract, and it's okay. They said hi, I'm going to say hi back. There's nothing wrong with that. And then other times we might want to double think of how we're responding, and we're not on a default program, and we want to be more deliberate in our consciousness. I think I've decided to change it from transcendent because too many people equate that with enlightenment and perfection, and I think just deliberation in our consciousness, making the decision how I wish to respond versus react to life. When we can see where we are in our consciousness, we can observe it and decide, is this where I want to be right now? Is this how I want to feel right now? Is this how I want to respond right now? And right now there's a real tug of war going on because we see a lot of despotism and injustice and cruelty and heartbreaking, unmerciful behavior all over the place, and it's easy to be debilitated in those thoughts. I too, I can watch those videos and listen to the news and just feel abject grief. And then we witness such beautiful actions like what happened on Saturday, October 18th, and people coming out in the hundreds of thousands, 7 million people just in this country, just in the United States, coming together peacefully, joyfully, coming together in community. And the tears were joyful. The relief was joyful. No, it's not going to change the world right now, but it let people know they weren't alone. And for all of the 7 million that showed up, they had people supporting them. Like, I was teaching, I couldn't go because my class started at exactly the time of the protest because somebody, me, didn't use their noggin when they scheduled it. But what was I teaching people how to do? Use their natural rhythms to make decisions in their businesses. And these are solopreneurs. These are people with small businesses, writers, an optician, an esthetician, people who are one person operations with maybe some help. And that's how we change the world, right? So that was my subversion that day, was teaching people how to thrive and use their own natural personal rhythms to make a difference in the world and make a difference in their own life. And that's great. And my parents represented at the protest and met lots of young people, and they were so excited young people were there this time because last time there wasn't so many young people. And they protested, things like Vietnam too. So they're old hands. So it's important to understand with the current energies, we don't want to stay in that despair. That's how they defeat us. They rob us of joy. And it can be very triggering for us who have experienced abuse in any way, because one thing abusers do is they make you feel powerless. They rob you of your joy. They rob you of hope. And a lot of times they'll wait till you have a good day and then the other shoe drops, and a lot of our lower psychic ability is often developed in traumatic circumstances. So this can be a very triggering time for people. And that's why there are those saying, your joy is the antidote, because that's what they fear. Because if you are in a more relaxed consciousness or a more empowered consciousness, you're better able to make decisions for yourself and other people around you. You're less likely to operate out of fear. And that's cold comfort when it's affecting your family. That's cold comfort when it's directly impacting you and your community. And yet, when we look at the great leaders in social justice movements, every single one has talked of hope and resolve. There's been a lot of Maya Angelou's work on TikTok recently, and I heard Joan Baez singing in Spanish at the San Francisco rally. I saw beautiful videos of Joan Baez. She's an old hand at this, and they speak of strength and love and fortitude and yes, the big feelings of fear, etc., and oppression. But we can't bow to that. And if we have an ounce of privilege, showing up for those who can't show up for themselves is essential globally. And one of the things that gives me great hope is there are people all over the world who are standing up for right human relations, for right thinking. And these are terms that are used in theosophy. So when they talk about right, they mean aligned, aligned, not unaligned. It doesn't mean right or left. It means, or even correct, it's alignment. It is righted, right? When you right an object that has fallen. So, with the new moon coming with curiosity, with Mars and Mercury conjunct, transformative thoughts, it's a powerful, powerful thing. The new moon in Libra is about mutuality and it's about mature relationship. It's not about hearts and flowers and romance. That would be Taurus's job. Thank you very much. Libra is about the contracts or social contracts, our mutual obligations, our agreements, our ability to negotiate mutually beneficial arrangements. And so often through social and cultural programming, in relationship with other, and this would be one-on-one relationships, so best friends, business partners, clients, um, like if you do one-on-one consulting, or if you're a reader, a therapist, a consultant of any kind. And then, of course, our significant others or our roommates can fall into the seventh house, of course. But that marriage is a contract, and all contracts are negotiated. It is often because of socialization and cultural beliefs that we don't make mutual agreements. We operate off default settings or cultural and social beliefs. There will be those online saying this new moon in Libra is the time to manifest a partner. And I'm going to say no. It is not time to manifest a particular person. It is a time to manifest, okay, or set intentions around what partnership actually means to you and mature the understanding. So, on a general view, before we get into specifics for the patron only podcast, in a general view, being curious and asking yourself, what does partnership really mean to me? What is a mutual partnership? What is the give and take? What am I willing to give and what am I willing to receive in this? Because a lot of times people say, I just want somebody to get me. I want somebody to understand me. But if you don't understand yourself, how the hell can you expect anybody else to understand you? You have to be able to communicate you to you before you can communicate you to anybody else. And for nobody else is going to show you who you are. They're going to show you where you've been. Okay. So, because this is a mature new moon in Libra for us on the personal level, since it has a light quality of Gemini ruled by Mercury, we want to come with maybe a little sense of humor. We want to come in with our questions for ourselves of what does clarity around partnership look like to me? Whether you're in partnership, what can be renegotiated? Where have you maybe given more than you receive? Or maybe you haven't even allowed yourself to ask for what you really want because maybe you haven't let yourself admit what you actually want or need, right? Taurus, as ruled by Venus, is about what needs do you have? What does security look like? Libra, ruled by Venus, is how you negotiate to get it met. Okay. So come with curiosity. What does clarity look like and feel like to you? When your thoughts are super clear, how does your body feel? Feel into that. Take a deep breath and breathe it in and exhale it out and ask yourself, what does clarity feel like in my body when I really, really am clear? And come from that space when you set your intentions. And the intention setting part of this podcast is patron only. So we'll go house by house in that. And we will um, make sure that you get some help in that. If you get the magazine, if you're in the horoscope or the deep dive in horoscope tier, the $15 tier and up, you already have some information on setting intentions with this new moon coming up on the 20th. It's a powerful new moon. It doesn't really have a lot of crappy stuff happening with it. And most new moons aren't all that dramatic anyway, but it's very powerful. On a collective level, we're looking at the social contract. We're looking at what is right and just and fair, not just to ourselves, but to those around us. And saying, this is what matters. So we can't force other people through our intentions, right? It would be nice, but imposing our will on others or trying to manipulate others into agreement it only works just so far. You can have a very strong will and will things into being. They usually fall apart pretty fast, and by pretty fast I'm thinking in geologic time. It might work for you now, but it may not in 20 years. So we really don't want to look at, I want this particular person or this particular job, or I need society to wake up. Well, work on you. How can you be more clear? If you're awake, what are you doing with your wokeness? How are you taking action in the world? If you have a modicum of privilege, how are you using that to make a difference? It's okay to opine. It's okay to have opinions, but what are you doing about it? How are you making things better in your local community? In because people are looking at the big picture, but so much of what is acted out happens at the local level, and that's why I've been hammering on that. And I want to remind you, if you're looking for action steps, we're starting at the very beginning at the American Blueprint Civics for Everyday People. That is, I've decided I'm just going to publish the podcast through Patreon. And it's at patreon.com/American Blueprint. You can read about it in the show notes. But anyway, Every single episode, there's an action step you can take, and we're starting bite-sized pieces. We're starting with, watching a city meeting or a county meeting and finding out what's important to you in that, and then we'll get to greater and greater action steps. Don't think the little stuff isn't important, because you're all about to find out over the next year or so how very, very important local government is. And that's why they don't want you thinking about it. That's why they always want you looking at the president. Yes, we've seen the dangers of having a bad one, and we've seen what holes need to be plugged up. But in this social contract, you'll see how important local is, and even the smallest act is going to have an impact. So none of you are without power. They wouldn't be trying to oppress you if you didn't have it.
All right, let's give some really important patron shout outs. Thanks to all the patrons who hung out with me as we recorded the podcast on Monday after all day of recording and having crappy tech issues, like I talked about in the preface of this podcast. But big shout outs to our newest patrons. Without Patreon, there truly is no podcast. All right, we've got Peony, A-Ray, Mia, Leo, 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 Morty, Jennifer, Archer List, Lori, Kelly, Krista, A, Francis, Joe G, Lauren, Caitlin, Charlotte, Amber, Vanessa, Eric, Butter Chicken, Megan, Twunk, Stacy, Maddie, Laurel, Jennifer, Peach Pom Pom, Ellen, Linda, Kimberly, Vicky, Luz Maria, Rachel, Lindsay, James, Andrea, Tiramisu, Amber, Brittany, Jim, Elizabeth, Matilda, A Beautiful Heart, Mostly Gemini, Claire, Jay Barrera, Nancy, Lindsay, Michelle, Allie, Julia, Good Witch 73, Jaleel, No Way Jose, Effie, Caramujo, Jewel Sphere, Bernice, Sierra, Neva, El or Ellie, Althea, Heather, Anne, Chelsea, Maggie, Asia, Cassandra, Jordan, Jenny, Luca, Caroline, Laura, Jen V, Anna, LB, Taylor, Sparkleworm, Just Us Three, DB, Ashley, Carmen, Albano, Nick, Susan, Rachel, Colleen, Allie, Natalie, Bertha Gab, 44, Kathy, Cindy, and Jenny. Thank you to our newest patrons, and thank you to the patrons who were up with me all night. Hopefully, I put some of you to sleep. Again, my deepest gratitude for all of your support. Remember, we don't get funding any other way but through our listeners. And for that, I am proud. So rock on and enjoy the rest of the podcast.
The grand trine's happening this week because there's more than one. We've got Mercury and Mars conjunct throughout the week. It's moving into a nice tight grand trine between Jupiter and Saturn. And this is a great time for not just deconstruction, because I think too many people look at deconstruction without an eye to reconstruction, because you don't just tear something apart and leave it there. If you've ever renovated a house, you don't just leave a room unfinished, not if you want to be comfortable. And so deconstructing and taking responsibility and accountability for the roles we play default through social programs and social class and economic status and blah de blah de blah and our biases, etc. It's not that that isn't important, but then how do you build forward? And this is a great time to transform our thoughts at large and our thoughts on the inside. And I talked about tuning your Mercury at the beginning of the podcast. And this is a great time to retune our thinking and be very deliberate and intentional and recognize how we think ourselves into disempowerment, how we allow ourselves to be disempowered, and how, and instead of blaming ourselves, because I see that so much, like, oh my God, I've done this to myself. I've held myself back. My stinking thinking got in the way, and that self-flagellation. It's on one hand, it's debilitating. On the other, it's self-indulgent. And you're human. Everybody's human. We do this. So notice and redirect. That's how you make the transformation. This is a massively alchemical time to transform our thinking in ways that not only help embolden us, empower us, infuse us with our agency. It's also, a remarkable time to shift our thinking and our consciousness in ways that allow us to really dig into living. We get X amount of time on this planet, and it's short. It goes by so fast. It's there's so much more we can do when we give ourselves permission to grow, and that energy is here. There's nothing more wonderful than, you know, uh, being able to transcend our former self. And that means rise above it, to transform and become a version of self that is outstandingly, almost unimaginable at a certain point in our life. And we can make those radical shifts, you know, in moments sometimes. And then other things we have to strategize and realize it's incremental and not put pressure on ourselves. But that's part of this. And then as we go through the week, we have between about the 23rd and the 28th, Mars really tucks into that grand trine, and with Jupiter and Saturn. And on a collective level, this is power to the people, and this is global. And you're going to be seeing people really rising up and demanding. There's a lot of power and a lot of force. People forget that Scorpio, and in a modern sense, especially as it's governed by Pluto, is about power. People see it as destructive energy. It's not. It's power. It's understanding power. And it's like the people start to really understand where the power truly lies. And there will be pushback potentially against the people. And I don't think it's going to be that effective. But I do think as we go through the weak minded, the insecure, the controlling, domineering, abusive consciousnesses are going to push back in the face of joy, and they're going to lose this battle. This is not a battle they're going to win, but they're going to amp up, and the people are not going to have it. And I think we're going to see some truly historic things between now and the end of the month. I'm very excited about it. It's a push. It's not an end. It's not an end point, but I think the people will be emboldened, and that's in so many different places in the world. And again, anybody who grew up with dominance and control factoring in their life, you know what happens when you start to succeed and there's somebody who wants to control you. They're going to make it harder, they're going to throw obstacles at you. But I think we're going to see people kind of linking arms and being like, no, no, no. So this is the Fellowship of the Rings keeps coming into my mind with, the support of one another. As one stumbles, another gathers them. The energy of Samwise Gamgee's, that wonderful, loyal, kind friend who could walk through Mordor and get his friend to the goal. That is how we can be for each other. And I'm very emboldened at it. On an individual level, this is creative, powerful. If you are an artist, a musician, if you are a poet, a writer, if you're a dancer, if you just love those things, if you're a therapist, if you're a counselor, a coach, an astrologer, a metaphysician, any human being, whatever whenever you connect to the muse, and if you've ever done that, when you're aligned and the energy is flowing and it's coursing through your system and you can feel it, sense it, taste it, touch it, see it, and you're just vibrant and the energy is coursing through your system and it feels like it will never end. Tap into this because this is a fire hose of creation. And remember, for anything that happens that appears destructive, there is an equal opposite reaction to that, and that is creativity. For every act of war, there is an act of peace. And people are going to be demanding this. And Linda, one of our patrons here, has commented people are recognizing that joy is a valid expression, not of resistance necessarily, but of claiming a different future. Yes, it is stating this is the reality we are setting the foundation for. This is how we build forward. The people are showing resilience and they are showing there is a way to go. There is faith, there is hope, there is peace, there is love, there is justice. And this gets created forward. And that is the thing I am most excited about as we move through October. There will be things in the external world that are difficult to witness, and yet, if you put your focus on the people who stand resilient in these times, the people who continue to uplift and be of service, regardless of how heavy it is, the people who show up, Michael the librarian, my God, he does a service. Mandy Patinkin and his wife, often giving strong messages, people who are using their privilege, their voice, their influence are showing up. People, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to express the struggle. Don't live in it. Okay. I think people often misunderstand me. I'm not a high vibe only person. It's okay to express our work. And resilience means the ability to bounce back after challenging circumstances. And if we don't acknowledge the challenging circumstances, how the hell do we know we bounce back? We can move forward. And I've mentioned earlier in the podcast that some of the great poets have been their words have been circulating through TikTok. Dr. Maya Angelou's words, profound wisdom there. Somebody who struggled and suffered and spoke truth to power. um great great wisdom. And it's a shame when we say, oh, it's too bad she's not here to inspire us, when she planted the seeds in anyone who heard her words to be with her and to stand with her and to express like her. Same like Mr. Rogers. We, as grown adults, are not to look for the helpers. We are to be the helpers. We don't need another Mr. Rogers. We need that Mr. Rogers inside of us to show up. He planted the seeds. Okay. Every single great teacher, every single world teacher has planted the seeds to allow each person to express and to be authentically in themselves. You don't have to act like them. You have to channel that of you out into the world. If you want to be the change in the world you seek, you've got to do that inside job first. If you want to see people be braver, you need to be braver. And that braver could just be that you decide to leave the house today and look up at the grocery store and say hi. to somebody and risk rejection, risk them not saying hi back, right? You could hold a door for someone and make their day. You could buy somebody a coffee. You could hand somebody a pair of socks. You could act goofy and bring joy to a small child. You could find volunteer opportunities. Rejection's part of life. There are going to be people who think you're the bee's knees, and there are going to be people who think you're a fool. Nobody likes being rejected. It's part of life, right? Yeah. And Elizabeth says, as somebody who's been on the receiving end of a random smile, it really can change the whole day. Yeah, a stranger saved my life when I was 19 years old. They'll never know it. I was walking in London and I was having very dark thoughts, and it was a very difficult time, and I was contemplating what I could do to not feel that way anymore. I didn't want to feel at all anymore. And in London, nobody gave you eye contact. And I kind of like that. I came from a small town and it was impossible to be anonymous. And I really loved the anonymity of London. But at 19, walking down this road, just really not able to escape the way I was feeling and being raw on the inside and being stoic on the outside. And across the street, this woman in a lovely cloche hat looked at me straight in the eyes and smiled and saved my life because I was so startled by her looking in my direction. There was no one else around. There was only me. It could have been an angel, was a human angel, but I was so startled. She disrupted my thoughts. Maybe she was psychic. Maybe she was just a helper. Or maybe she was just a really nice lady. And I was so distracted, wondering why she smiled at me, I forgot all those horrible feelings. We can switch our consciousness in an instant. We can switch our consciousness in a moment. It takes 90 seconds to wash the hormones through the body of anger, rage, emotional pain, negative thinking. It takes 90 seconds. That is a minute and a half. We can switch our consciousness. And if you think you're not needed on the planet at this time, think again. This is a collective experience and no one is remiss from it. This is a collective experience and everybody has an opportunity to contribute, and you contribute whether you do so deliberately or not. Imagine using your agency to align your consciousness into a better feeling space so you feel better in your own skin and you're transmitting that out into the world and it uplifts people whether you purposely uplift others or not. You contribute to the energetic and magnetic field. There's no magic wand except us. We are it, right? Right? And JC says, I too have been in the depths of despair and kept going due to a simple kindness. Those simple acts of kindness, not to make anything happen. We don't have to know what someone is going through. We could just be a little kinder, a little gentler, not just with other people, but with ourselves. I am you and you are me and we are we together, said the Beatles. And with that, I think I'm going to leave you. I hope I've left you inspired. I hope you have a great week. I've been trying to energize and enervate and edify you as we've gone through these dark and crazy transformational times. and I wish you the best of weeks. Thank you for listening to the podcast. And if you want to hear that wonderful interview with Maverick Joyce, we'll be getting it out next week.